the work in the virtual arena.
So this is a group then from different parts of the organization
Yeah.
who've been identified as having talent and are possibly the next level of leadership. About how many people are working at Central Maine Medical?
Well, in the whole organization, which is the Central Maine Medical family, we have approximately 3,000 employees.
3,000 employees, and you selected 9.
Yes.
How in the world did you narrow it down to those 9?
Well, it was with the help of a multiplicity of things. We had each of our managers take a Caliper. We had each of our executives do the same, and we did a comparative gap analysis on those. We also looked at performance assessments. We looked at employee satisfaction results, and we did a pulse among the executive team of those people who, within their interactions, seem to exhibit many of the leadership qualities that we'd earlier defined as manager competencies within this organization. Their ability to communicate, their quick move within the organization up some of the ladders, their ability to think in a complex way, their ability to get things done, their ability to distinguish themselves in ways from their peers, all of those pieces together. The group has become more distinguished. They understand that they have a role. And within the group, there are those who see themselves moving up, moving out to broaden their experience more than others. And that's one of the things that's very important for us to note at this time, too. I'm not certain if next time, if we wouldn't do maybe some more upfront work, even more work to understand where people see themselves and how they see themselves growing within the organization.
Do you think they would have known it before this? In other words, this experience may have clarified that even for them?
Perhaps this experience has helped them to see that they know where they are and they know what they want in their career and in their career here. And it may not be advancement of the type that we envision for some of these.
But that's so powerful.
It's terribly powerful.
To know that for the individual and for the organization.
Absolutely.
Because otherwise you could end up promoting somebody into a position that they thought they wanted for some reason, a self-concept.
Exactly.
But it wasn't the right position. And how many people end up having to pay for that as a result?
Exactly.
You've talked about how they discovered things about themselves individually. They probably also discovered things about themselves in terms of the way they relate to others. So it confers on them a sense that they are, in fact, the next in line.
Absolutely, if they want to be.
I don't know if you'd be able to share with us an example of a conflict or a situation that was somebody was uncomfortable with and how it might have been resolved.
One of the things that happened to me is that one of the leaders of the organization told me that they felt as though I'd made a huge impact, and they did not told me that to date. So that was very good. And I actually needed to deal with a difficult situation with one of my peers and set time to have the discussion with honesty using one of the tools that was provided me in the class, and that provided a 2.5-hour opportunity to discuss the situation at far more of an honest level than it had ever been discussed, and that was very important.
Can I ask you then, Joyce, any advice that you would have for a leader in another organization that was considering either this action learning or identifying and developing the potential of their future leaders?
Yes, I think that succession planning and leadership development are absolutely key to any business organization at this point in time. And the work that Caliper did with us in identifying the competencies that are critical for the future of our organization, then assisting us through the use of Caliper and other tools to identify leaders was very important to our work, as was the coaching and individual development of our executive team.
Thank you so much, Joyce. It's been great talking to you. I appreciate so much your sharing, not just what you've gone through and how your organization has grown as a result, but some of the personal stories about what it's meant.
Yes, well, thank you very much. I look forward to speaking with you again.
Those are some great insights from Joyce McFeetris of Central Maine Medical Family about developing people who are high potential in your organization. As we said, it takes more than just the skills to be a future leader. You have to be motivated and willing to take on such challenges. Now what I'd like to do is take a moment and poll the audience. What I'd like to know is what is most important to your organization in terms of developing people? What is most important to your organization in terms of developing people? Is it A, developing new hires, B, developing current employees who display high potential, C, developing stronger team interaction and group dynamics, or D, I'm supposed to develop a development plan? Let's see, here, we're getting the polling coming through right now. It looks, Eileen, like just shy of 20% are saying developing new hires. About a third are saying developing stronger team interaction and group dynamics. And the rest in the high 40s is saying developing current employees who display high potential. What do you make of that, Eileen?
I think that's very consistent with what we see out there, Patrick, especially in today's economy and with the demographics of the workforce. And I know that we'll talk more about that. That really it's about making sure that you don't lose your really A players to some poacher who wants them too, and to make sure that you maximize that investment you've already made to make sure that these people stay with you and they continue to perform at a high level and that they add value to the future of your company.
Excellent, excellent. Actually, I neglected to say that 4% of our listeners said, I'm supposed to develop a development plan. And maybe we can talk to those a little bit later.
Yeah, the other 96 were probably thinking that too.
Oftentimes, though, we end up getting so caught up in the day-to-day and dealing with issues that we haven't even had a chance. We're so stuck in the moment that we haven't had a chance to conceive, let alone plan for certain situations, Eileen. The analogy that I'm thinking of is like an annual physical.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, it's like asking yourself, all right, well, where am I? How healthy am I? How fit am I? And evaluating to make sure that you're in good health, as well as making the adjustments to fix things or move things in the right direction. But, as we all know, it's not just the annual physical. It's actually doing the things that the doctor recommends and seeing what you need. Let's look at what we need. Let's look at where we're going. Let's look at the gaps between those things. And then let's really make sure that we either get healthy and stay healthy or get healthier as an organization. And there has to be an open and honest discussion regarding those issues.
Well, when you say that those questions need to be asked and addressed openly and honestly, who in the organization should be asking those questions?
Well, Patrick, it is so important that this be a strategic level dialogue. It's something that your executives should really, really be paying attention to. And when we do succession management, we absolutely insist that the CEO or the president be the chair of the succession management process. It's that important. I mean, this is not something that you delegate to the HR administrator. Now, I think that your senior leader in human resources and your senior leaders from talent development should definitely be on the committee and should be facilitating that process. But this is such a strategic level decision, and you wouldn't delegate that authority to anyone else on any other type of strategic level decision. It's also not a single person. It's not that we'll just let the VP of HR decide what our leadership competencies should be. This is something that an executive committee should be looking at to determine who we are, who we want to be, where we want to go, and how we want to get there.
Terrific, terrific. What I'd like to do now is introduce our next speaker. We're going to be talking with Dave Lawson, the Vice President of Human Resources at Franciscan Health Systems. And along with Dave, we're also going to be listening to 3 participants that were involved in their leadership development program in 2007 and 2008. Thank you so much for speaking to us today, Dave.
Oh, you're welcome.
How do you determine if someone has what it takes to be a high potential employee?
we think we know just by looking at their regular day-to-day performance. But yet we have to go back and check their performance appraisals. We use the Caliper profile tool. The Caliper actually looks at for leadership potential. And we use that as a way for us to kind of decide if we're going to put someone in the leadership development pool that we're planning for the next year. And so what we're trying to do is find a way to recruit and retain qualified nurse leaders, and that Caliper profile tool helps us in that way. After we select them into the development pool, we'll do a 360 on them, and we'll work with them to look at individual competencies that they're not probably as highly attuned to as we'd like, and also we look at the group as a whole, too, in that leadership development pool. We'll actually have Caliper help us in terms of leaders developing leaders. And so Caliper will help us in terms of the action learning project that we're going to be putting together to move that forward, too, because we'll know that from the 360 that the group is kind of weak in that area.
Interesting. Just so that I get a sense of the scope of this program, Dave, I mean, how many people do you identify? How often?
We've done 3 groups right now, and we're looking at doing a 4th one coming up in FY09. And what we have is called the Continuity Planning Committee, and this is made up of the top 6 leaders of our organization. And we get together with one of our consultants, and we get in a room and we sit down who we're going to pick. And so everyone's been nominated, so we'll come in with maybe 15 to 20 nominations, and we're going to probably pare this down to 10 individuals. And again, we're looking at what jobs are we most at risk for losing, and or what jobs are most critical for us in the future in terms of running our business. We sit down and look at their past job performance. We look at their potential from the Caliper profile tool. We'll look at metrics for their own department, too, in terms of turnover, recruitment, retention, and also look and see what types of leaders they've actually developed so that they can be moved on, too.
To hear you describe this, Dave, you have not just clarity about this, but a very strategic approach.
It's just kind of a way of smartly allocating our resources for the future. So,
can you share with us how somebody changed and improved, and some part of what you saw that particularly impressed you about how somebody was able to go through and become a much more effective leader?
One of the individuals we had put in the pool had a history of being a little bit overly assertive in his or her current role. She actually was able to temper that and recharge her thinking in terms of when she was asked questions and how to work on projects and work with others. And from that, we were able to promote her to a VP level down the road. And that happened just in recent months here at Franciscan Health System.
That's excellent, Dave. Thank you so much for sharing that.
You're welcome.
So now we have the pleasure of speaking with some employees who have participated in the leadership development programs that were implemented at Franciscan. I'd like to first introduce Stephen Schramm. Stephen is the Director of Hospital Contracting and Reimbursement at Franciscan Health Systems. Stephen, thanks so much for taking some time to talk with us today.
You're welcome.
You were a participant in the 2007 Action Learning Project and working on the performance management system. Can you give us a quick take, Stephen, of what it was like being inside this program? Describe what your project was that you were working on, but what did you also learn about others?
The project that I was on, it was a performance management system, and part of it was defining what exactly is a performance management system, what do we have, what did we think a good performance management system would be, and that's not necessarily saying have somebody tell us what it is, but having us define it, us making recommendations. The team was made up from people throughout the organization, from finance, from clinical areas, from other administrative support departments, as well as operational leaders. From that standpoint, it was people that I'd never worked with, and we all had very diverse backgrounds. It was a nice opportunity to come together as a team, and from that standpoint, we all had different experiences, different points of reference with which we were trying to define not only the issue, but also the goal, and we had to come together as a consensus, and it was very unique. I'm in the finance department, would work primarily with finance people, so having a little bit broader scope and building new relationships for me was one of the key learning experiences.
Can you tell me, do you see your job and your position and really yourself differently now?
Absolutely. I think the program has been very beneficial. I think it's helped me obtain a little bit clearer understanding of what is required of a leader within our organization and how to be more effective as a manager-director in terms of helping identify and frame issues as well as building consensus in terms of goals and learning through that process.
And do you feel that you actually manage differently now?
Absolutely. After going through the first couple of sessions of action learning and coming back into the organization, one of the first meetings that I held took some of the skills that we had learned and was applying them in that. And after the meeting, several people came out to me afterwards and said, we can see a real difference just in what you're doing. And I would call it a market improvement in terms of keeping the team focused